Have you ever felt uneasy around small children even if they're your own family members? It's a feeling some of us may be all too familiar with, and it's the journey we're going to embark on today. Picture this. You're a 30-year-old man, your sister, 6 years your senior, has a 2-year-old daughter, your niece. You love your niece. There's no question about that. But you find yourself grappling with a certain discomfort around her. Now, this isn't about not loving or caring for her, it's more about the awkwardness that comes with interacting with someone who is still exploring the world around them. You know, the kind of person who can't yet fully articulate her thoughts or emotions, who sees the world with a sense of wonder that is both beautiful and frankly at times a little overwhelming. It's not that you don't want to be part of her life. You see her 3 to 4 times a month, you play with her, but the idea of talking like a baby to her, the very concept of toddler speak, it just doesn't sit well with you. And that's okay. It's not about not wanting to bond with her, but about not knowing how to bridge that gap, that chasm of years and experiences that separate you. And then, there's the idea of taking her out in public, alone. It's not just about the responsibility of caring for a 2-year-old, but also the fear of having to discipline her if she acts out. It's a daunting prospect, isn't it? You love her unconditionally, but the idea of being the sole responsible adult in a public setting, it just fills you with unease. So you voice your concerns, and they're met with disbelief, almost as if your discomfort translates to dislike. But that's not it, is it? You just struggle with the dynamics of interacting with a small child. So, the question arises, is it wrong to feel this way? Family, they say, is everything. But what happens when family expectations don't align with your own comfort? It's a question that begins to loom large as you find yourself spending more time with your adorable 2-year-old niece. Your family, who are more family-oriented than you have ever been, start to push for you to deepen this relationship. They suggest outings to the zoo, trips to the children's museum, and other activities that would involve you and your niece exploring the world together. The pressure starts to mount. Each suggestion feels like an expectation, a responsibility that you must shoulder. Your family doesn't seem to understand that while you love your niece, you're not comfortable around small children. They don't see that their suggestions, though well-intentioned, add to your unease. You try to negotiate, to find a middle ground. You suggest taking her to the park or having her over at your house. But instead of understanding, they react as if you've declared a dislike for your niece. They can't seem to grasp that you're not refusing to spend time with her, you're merely uncomfortable with the idea of taking her out in public, alone. The conflict begins to grow, a rift forming between your family's expectations and your own comfort. You love your niece, that's not the issue here. But you also don't want to be put in a position where you have to discipline her if she acts out in public. You don't want to be responsible for her in a setting where you already feel out of your depth. Your family seems to think your discomfort is strange. They can't understand why you wouldn't want to take your niece out and about. But they're not seeing the whole picture. They're not understanding that their expectations are adding to your discomfort, making you feel even more out of place in a situation you're already struggling with. It's a tricky situation, isn't it? Now let's talk about the public aspect of this issue. The idea of taking a 2-year-old to public places, such as the zoo or a children's museum, can be a daunting task for many of us, especially if we're not used to being around small children. It's not just about the responsibility of ensuring their safety and enjoyment, but also about the potential for unpredictable behavior that could lead to a need for discipline. Imagine, you're walking through a bustling zoo, hand in hand with your 2-year-old niece. She's fascinated by the world around her, her eyes wide with wonder. But then she spots an ice cream cart and she wants one. She wants it now. You say no, it's almost lunchtime. And then the tantrum begins. Everyone's eyes are on you. What do? How do you handle it? That's the fear, isn't it? The fear of having to discipline a child in public, the fear of judgment from strangers, the fear of doing something wrong. The nervousness of watching a 2-year-old is understandable. They're at an age where they're exploring, learning, testing boundaries. It's a beautiful thing to witness, but it can also be nerve-wracking. They could trip over a stone. They could put something in their mouth they shouldn't. They could wander off while you're distracted for just a second. It's a constant vigilance that can be exhausting. And then, there's the general unease around small children, the baby talk, the mess, the noise. It's not for everyone. Some of us just don't have the patience, the energy, or the interest. And that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you don't love your niece. So when you say you're uncomfortable taking your niece to public places by yourself, it's not about love. It's about comfort and confidence. It's about knowing your limitations and respecting your feelings. And it's about finding a balance between your own comfort and the expectations of others. It's not about love, but more about comfort and confidence. The reaction of family can sometimes be surprising, can't it? It's like a storm that brews quietly until all of a sudden, it's upon you with full force. That's how I felt when I voiced my concerns to my family. I thought they knew me, thought they understood my discomfort around small children, but their reaction was nothing short of bewildering. Their faces fell, their smiles faded, and in their eyes, I saw a mixture of disbelief and disappointment. It was as if I had said something unimaginable, as if my discomfort was a sign of me not loving my adorable niece. It was a misinterpretation that took me by surprise and left me scrambling for words. My sister, a woman of strength and grace, looked at me as though I had wounded her deeply. I could see her struggling with tears, her eyes glistening with unshed emotion. It was heartbreaking, and all I wanted to do was to make her understand. To let her know that my love for my niece was not in question, that it was just my unease in dealing with toddlers in public places. But the words just wouldn't come out right. And then, there was my parents. Ever the pillars of our family, their reaction was one of silent disappointment. They didn't say much, but their silence spoke volumes. It was clear that they too had misunderstood my discomfort for a dislike of my niece. The situation escalated quickly and I found myself in the eye of the storm. My words were taken out of context, my love for my niece questioned. It was a misunderstanding that turned a simple family lunch into a moment of discomfort and uncertainty, but you know, that's the thing about family. We love, we fight, we misunderstand, but at the end of the day, we still remain family. And as I navigated through this unexpected storm, I realized that this was just another bump in the road. A misunderstanding that needed clearing up, a conversation that needed to be had. Misunderstandings can certainly complicate things, but they can also open doors to conversations that might otherwise never happen. So, here's to clearing up misunderstandings and strengthening family bonds, because at the end of the day, family is what matters the most. So, am I wrong for feeling this way? This question has been at the heart of our conversation today. It's a question that I'm sure resonates with many of you, whether you're a parent, an uncle, an aunt, a grandparent, or simply someone who finds themselves in the company of small children from time to time. We've talked about my situation, about my love for my 2-year-old niece, a love that is genuine and unconditional. We've also talked about my discomfort around small children, a discomfort that I suspect isn't as uncommon as we might think. I've shared with you how I feel awkward, even nervous, when it comes to interacting with them, especially in public settings, and how those feelings intensify when I consider the prospect of having to discipline them. We've also touched upon the expectations of my family, their desire for me to be more involved, to take my niece out to places like the zoo or a children's museum. And we've seen how my reluctance to do so has been misconstrued, how it has led to misunderstandings and hurt feelings. The question at the heart of all this is whether it's wrong to feel this way, to feel uncomfortable around small children, even if they're your own family. Is it wrong to prioritize your own comfort over the expectations of others? Is it wrong to be honest about your feelings, even if they may not be what others want to hear? In this life, there are no easy answers, no one-size-fits-all solutions. What works for one person may not work for another. What feels right to one person may feel wrong to another. And that's okay. We're all different. We all have our own strengths, our own weaknesses, our own comfort zones. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Is it wrong to feel uncomfortable around small children, even if they're your own family? Because at the end of the day, it's through sharing our experiences, our fears, and our doubts that we learn, grow, and find a way to navigate this complex and fascinating journey we call life.